The doors of the throne room slammed shut behind the last of the witnesses, the ironwood panels reverberating like the toll of a distant bell. King Robert Baratheon's steps echoed down the columned corridor that led toward Maegor's Holdfast, each stride driven by rage so tightly leashed it seemed a physical thing, snapping and snarling at his heels. Sweat glazed the king's brow beneath his heavy crown. Torchlight danced across the polished antlers, gilding them blood-red while servants and guards flattened themselves against chill stone walls to escape his path. Eddard Stark followed several paces behind, the long shadow of his cloak drifting over the marble tiles like winter frost. He dared not close the distance yet. The raw fury radiating from Robert was a tempest, and Ned had lived through enough northern gales to know when wind could flay flesh from bone. Still, the dire sense of duty pressed him onward. Jaime Lannister's confession, flung like a gauntlet before the Iron Throne, had set a match to every tinder-dry secret in the hall, and Robert's brand of justice was ablaze once kindled. At the bend of the corridor, the king halted, shoulders heaving, fists opening and closing about the air as though they sought ale, a boar spear, anything to crush. Ned caught up, boots whispering to a stop. "Seven hells, Ned," Robert growled, voice thick as kettle tar. "Kingslayer, Kingslayer, he calls himself, and boasts it bold as brass before my throne. Thinks it a jest. Thinks, by the mother, that murdering a king can stand unpunished because the murdered king was mad." Ned held Robert's gaze beneath the guttering sconces. "Aerys was mad," he agreed, the words tasting like ice melt. "But regicide cannot be allowed to go unjudged, no matter the victim." Robert snorted. "I unjudged. Yet years we let him swagger in gold armor, polishing that lion's mane. Cersei's proud brother, Tywin's precious heir. Laughing behind his hand, calling himself Kingslayer this, Kingslayer that." He spat, and the phlegm sizzled against a torch as it struck. "No more. His jest ends tonight." Ned bowed his head. There was no argument that could tame Robert's wrath now. The king turned suddenly, bristling. "I'll not wait for trial, not for such as him." Every man in that hall heard his own confession. The headsman's sword before dawn. Let that be the end. "Your Grace," Ned ventured, measuring each syllable. "Perhaps give Ser Jaime one night in a black cell and summon the full council come morning. Justice, like steel, is stronger for being tempered." Robert's glare softened by a hair. "Tempert, stark? I've tempered too long. The realm will sleep easier knowing Lannister blood feeds the bricks of Flea Bottom." Then, with a grunt, he resumed his march, nodding brusquely to Ser Barristan Selmy, who kept pace at his right. In the hush that followed, Ned breathed out slow, watching the king's broad back recede. He felt the weight of unseen snares tightening, golden snares spun in Casterly rock, and wondered if the swift justice would hamstring the realm in ways even Robert could not foresee. Jaime Lannister sat alone in a cell beneath the Red Keep, stripped of his lion-crested armor, his wrists heavy with manacles that smelled of rust and pity. The torches along the passage beyond his bars had been doused save one, and its flame guttered low, painting the cell door with bars of corpse-green light. He rolled his shoulders against cold stone, feeling where clasps had pressed bruises beneath his tunic during the arrest. For a man acquainted with captivity, the familiarity of chains felt almost nostalgic. He laughed under his breath, soft, bitter. It had been a simple enough thing to speak the truth in the throne room. Years he had worn silence like another cloak, yet the weight had grown until even Lannister gold could not polish it away. Aerys too had been madder than a nest of fireflies. Jaime had saved a city from wildfire and a girl's father from a far crueler death. Yet no ballads praised him. Only whispers called him Oathbreaker, Kingslayer. Oaths, like swords, rust when left too long in the damp of memory. The cell door ground open and a cloaked figure stepped inside. Candles in the corridor revealed Eddard Stark's stark silhouette. The Lord of Winterfell spoke first. "You know what Robert intends." Jaime stretched his legs, manacles clinking. "Execution before breakfast? How like the king, early to hunt, early to slay." His grin could have cut glass. "I do hope he brings good steel. I'd hate to die beneath a dull blade. Ned's silence lingered like snowfall. Is there anything you would have me tell your sister? Cersei? Tell her. Tell her she always looked finest in morning black. He cocked his head, golden hair falling across one eye. But you, Stark, will you sleep easier if your king's justice is done while you hold the post of hand? Ned did not answer. The candle sputtered. Shadows crawled across Jaime's cheekbones. All men must pay for their sins, Ned said at last. Jaime chuckled. Then you and Robert best keep the headsman busy. I pray he has 1,000 swords. Above, within the Tower of the Hand, Sansa Stark wept into Lady Tanda Glover's embrace, mourning knightly honor lost and the spectacle she had witnessed, while Arya paced the carpets like a caged she-wolf. Elsewhere, in the Queen's chambers, Cersei Lannister smashed a vial of Myrish essence against a mirror, jade-colored perfume dripping down silvered glass like poison's tears. Her hands trembled, and each tremor pulsed with memory of promised power threatened by a single royal command. Across the city, bells tolled curfew. Yet Tywin Lannister sat in his solar at Casterly Rock, oil lamp halos framing a face carved of quarried granite. Ravens were roused and inkpots uncapped. Gold would speak where blood already cried. The Lion of the Rock considered his children. One son in chains, the other wandering half the realm, his daughter endangered by a king's rage, and decided there would be no sleep until he had plotted every tooth and claw required to tear out the heart of this affront. Dawn seeped into the red keep like thin wine, staining tower tops rose silk. Robert Baratheon stood upon the steps of the Great September of Baelor, hands clasped around the pommel of his warhammer. The morning's chill nipped even through his fur mantle. Below, the square swelled with small folk called by muffled rumors to witness high justice. Cells words, butchers, potboys, faces upturned like pale seeds waiting sowing. Jaime Lannister was marched forth in plain wool, still unshaven, wrists manacled before him. At each side strode gold cloaks, and behind walked Ser Boros Blunt carrying an executioner's sword so broad its shadow sliced the flagstones. Jaime's gait remained jaunty. Only his eyes, sharp as new-whetted razors, flickered across the crowd to where the Queen's litter stood shuttered in green silk. He could imagine Cersei's knuckles white on the window slats, her breath fogging crystal, her mind an armored host of schemes. Robert's proclamation boomed over the hush. Ser Jaime Lannister, you stand confessed of killing your anointed king. In my hand lies the realm's judgment. Have you any final words? Jaime lifted his chin, a sliver of Lannister pride shining even shackled. I saved 500,000 souls from burning alive. Pity the realm remembers only what is convenient. A murmur rippled through the masses. Sympathy, contempt, bewilderment. Ned could not tell from his vantage beside the king. He felt the stillness of steel inside his ribs as he watched the executioner raise the sword, its edge catching sunrise like a sheet of fire. Yet Robert's hand shot up. The blade halted mid-swing. Every breath on the steps froze. The king turned to his hand. The wall waits for murderous bastards. Lord Stark, will you carry out the escort yourself? A roar erupted from crowd, from council, from Cersei's unseen lungs, but Ned's answer was quiet. I will. So it was not death but exile chosen in a heartbeat, one that would beat through the veins of kingdoms like thunder through distant mountains. Chains clattered as Jaime was yanked upright, his eyes widening in the first astonishment Ned had ever glimpsed in the Kingslayer's gaze. The raven that winged its way toward Casterly Rock bore words scraped in haste. Life spared. Wall claims Lannister. Tywin's lips thinned at the message. Mercy, he mused, was but another form of insult. Across Westeros, wheels spun. Alliances shifted as farmers shift soil before a storm. No blade ever falls in isolation. Some men live, others die for it. In the Red Keep, Robert drained a flagon of mead before the council even dispersed. Executed or frozen, what's the difference? Lannister's roar will be a wolf's whimper beneath northern snows. He clapped Ned's shoulder, but the hand's silence was a stone in the king's ear, and Robert's laughter faltered. The Queen, for her part, retired to her chambers escorted by Ser Marin Trant. When the doors closed, she crumpled to the floor, hands burying in her skirts as if clawing grave dirt. Tears she could not shed in public spilled now, hot as wildfire. Rage followed in their track, cold and glittering. Her brother still breathed, but he was caged behind ice and oath-bound brothers. That wound cut deeper than the swing of any sword. Far in the red wastes of Dorne, Prince Doran received tidings of Jaime's near demise and exile with brows knit. "The stag begins butchery upon the lion," he murmured, shelling a blood orange as its juice bled over parchment. "Better a maimed lion than a starving viper." His maester bowed, though the prince's words rang cryptic as ever. Beyond the narrow sea, on a merchant galley rocking in the Jade Straits, Tyrion Lannister toasted the memory of King's Landing's chaos with a cup of grey pearl wine. Wind filled the Venezia's sails and news carried with it. His brother's fate hummed in every harbor like a bard's refrain. Tyrion's grin stiffened, laughter stuck behind his teeth. Chains on Jaime meant claws unsheathed elsewhere, and he was suddenly keenly aware of how wide the world was, wide enough for knives in the dark. Day bled into evening across King's Landing. Jaime was kept under strong guard until river barges could bear him north with Ned Stark. In the Lion's Tower, Cersei crushed quills until splinters pierced her fingers. Letters sailed to her father like arrows loosed from a golden bow. She summoned Pycelle, Varys, Littlefinger in turn, weaving webs no spider could match, promising coin or threat in equal measure. The power to kill had slipped from her grasp. Now she would sharpen subtler blades. In the sepulchre hush of the godswood, Ned knelt beneath the heart tree, red leaves whispering above. His thoughts were black wings battering his skull. Mercy had stayed Robert's hand at the last heartbeat. Yet mercy alone would not mend the fissures opening like new spring ice across the Seven Kingdoms. He closed his eyes and felt the old gods listening, silent as ever, ancient as snow. He asked them nothing. He knew better than to pray for what no man could grant. Instead, he vowed, in the quiet of bark and bone, to guard the realm's trembling peace as best a mortal could, even if that peace was built upon fragile oaths and a single spared life. On the 5th day of the 9th moon, a procession departed the capital. Ned Stark, Ser Jorah Castle, and 24 stout Northmen escorting the Kingslayer to the wall. Jaime rode in chains but upright, smile thin as a sword's edge. The King's Road stretched before them, a ribbon of dust and fate. Each hoofbeat carried omens. Of winter, of vengeance, of lions parading into the wolf's lair. Small folk along the route stared wide-eyed, mothers pulling children aside while whispered tales of dragonfire, mad kings, and treacherous lines were retold in hearthrooms each night. Some spat at Jaime's passing. Others watched in awe of a living legend bound for death in ice. Behind shutters, old men muttered that the gods were stirring again, as they had when dragons last screamed above Harrenhal. Catelyn Stark awaited her lord at Winterfell with restless pacing, Robb at her side, Bran in his wheeled chair, Rickon chasing Shaggy Dog beneath tables. When ravens arrived detailing Ned's escort, the great hall vibrated with rumor. Maester Luwin frowned over a map of the wall, marking where a new oathbreaker might stand the icy vigil. Robb, taller now, jaw set like Ned's, wrestled the idea of a Kingslayer sleeping under his father's protection. If he tries his hand at betrayal, we'll see how sharp ice truly is, he vowed. Yet Catelyn saw the brittleness in her son's stern face. Everything was changing too swiftly. South again, in King's Landing, Tywin's reply reached the Queen at last. A single line penned in exquisite calligraphy, "Hold fast. The rock rouses." Beneath it, the golden lion stamped. Cersei traced the ink with trembling fingertip and felt a molten warmth spread through her veins. The realm might believe Jaime subdued, but the lion's roar carried farther than any gale. She donned black not for mourning but for war, gems glinting like embers in her hair. At night she stood upon the balcony overlooking the Blackwater, eyes reflecting starlight and city fires alike. Come the morrow she would speak with the Iron Bank's envoys, with House Tyrell's ambassadors, with every whisperer in silk halls. Gold-bought swords, ships, even rumors. And rumors, once seeded, could bloom into treason. Across the alliance tapestry of Westeros, threads tugged. In Riverrun, Hoster Tully's cough rattled windows while Lisa in Aerie shrieked at shadows. In the Stormlands, Renly Baratheon polished smiles and daggers alike. In Dragonstone, Stannis' brooding silences deepened, the Red Woman's shadows flickering behind him. And beyond the wall, ghostly horns sounded on nights when the moons were thin. The Kingslayer's life spared was a stone dropped into a still pond. Rings rippled outward, touching coasts and crowns alike. Few sensed the true depth of the waters disturbed, or the leviathans that might rise. Ned's party reached the neck beneath weeping skies. Mist clung to horse manes, and the air tasted of peat and secrets. Jaime rode near Ned now, hands unshackled yet closely watched. He plucked a reed and chewed it idly, green eyes dancing over the gray world. Strange, he mused. Years I rode free yet chained by scorn. Now chained indeed yet free of pretense. He spat the reed. Life's little jests. Ned eyed him sidelong. It was not jest but mercy that spared you. Mercy? Have you met your king? Jaime laughed low. No, Lord Stark, your mercy. But mercy can be a blade. Cut too deep and the patient bleeds out all the same. Ned said nothing. Ahead, the King's Road vanished into fog, as though swallowed by the giant's teeth of myth. Somewhere unseen, a dire wolf howled, long, low, mournful. Jaime's smile faltered, a shard of unease flashing like distant lightning. For the first time, perhaps, he considered what awaited beyond the last hearths of the north. In Castle Black, Lord Commander Jeor Mormont read Ned's raven by the glow of a single candle. A lion among crows, he muttered. The wall remembers stranger vows. He sipped mulled wine, thoughts turning to black brothers who might balk at guarding a man whose name was etched into every song of treachery. Yet men were men, and the wall devoured them equally. Outside, Ghost padded silently along the ramparts, crimson eyes catching starlight. Jon Snow scratched the direwolf's ear, unaware of the name written in looping hand upon a parchment hundreds of leagues south. Ser Jaime Lannister, sworn to take the black. The Night's Watch, ever hungry, was about to taste gold's bitter alloy. Back in King's Landing, Varys the Spider threaded corridors like a wisp of silk, gathering whispers that clung to him as mist clings to river reeds. He knew of secret pacts forged in Tywin's name, of coin purses emptied in Volantis, of sell sales recruited in Lys. He knew the Queen's heart pulsed venom, knew Robert's drank itself numb, knew Ned's honor was a sword that might shatter beneath too much strain. In the hush of his chambers, Varys opened a hidden drawer and removed a small wooden box. Inside lay a ring carved of bone, stained by age. He weighed it upon his palm. Kings fall, lions roar, wolves howl, but bones remember, and bones, once stirred, have been known to walk. The nights lengthened. Autumn's breath carried chill northward. Ned's company passed Moat Cailin, ravens cawing overhead. Jaime rode in contemplative silence, studying toppled towers like broken crowns. Hard to believe such stones once halted armies. Ned's gaze flicked over ramparts crumbled by 1,000 years. Time is the only fortress no army holds forever. Poetic, Lord Stark, Jaime murmured. But tell me, when winter grips, do even poetry and honor freeze? Ned's answer was simple. Only cowards let honor die in cold. Jaime smirked. Then I pray your wall burns with it. I prefer warmth. They rode on. 3 days later, as the party wound through the wolfswood, arrows hissed from the gloom. Ned's guard raised shields. Steel rang. Jaime dove from his saddle, rolling behind a tree, laughing as blades flashed. Rescue, is it? How touching! But the attackers wore no lion sigils, only mottled cloaks and bandits' desperation. The skirmish was swift. 5 outlaws bled into moss, 1 captured. Under questioning, the prisoner confessed a bounty promised in Lannisport, gold enough to buy lands for a generation if they freed the Kingslayer. But the man knew no patron's face, only a courier's voice. Jaime spat on the corpse when justice was done. Gold breeds fools, he told Ned, as your mercy breeds chaos. Ned did not dispute it. In the capital, Robert's cups multiplied as worries did. He half forgot the Kingslayer's fate amid hunts and whores, yet letters from Stannis, Renly, and Cersei piled like debt. One night, staggering through the sprawling corridor of Maegor's Holdfast, he found himself before the sealed chamber where Aerys had kept his pyromancers. Dust thick on the door. He pressed a hand to it, mind reeling. "Madness," he whispered. "Madness breeds madness." Behind him, footsteps halted. Littlefinger's smooth voice slithered over the king's shoulder. "Your grace, the realm sings of your wisdom in sparing Ser Jaime. They say you are a merciful giant." Robert snarled, pushing past. "They say many things, Baelish, but none brave enough to say I've grown soft." Littlefinger smiled as if that were the cleverest jest in Westeros. "Soft as silk, and silk can be strangled." The king's roar shook dust from chandeliers. At Winterfell, Bran watched from the tower window as ravens wheeled. Maester Luwin pointed north. "Look, my prince, your father returns." Banners appeared on the horizon. Direwolf gray, and beneath it the crimson of a lion shrouded. Bran's heart hammered. Wonder at a Kingslayer bound for the wall, dread of change galloping home with his father. In the great courtyard, Catelyn greeted Ned with a tight smile that belied sleepless nights. Her gaze slid to Jaime, bound yet unbowed. "You bring trouble inside our walls," she whispered later, as they walked the covered bridge. Ned squeezed her hand. "I bring duty, Cat, and hope that mercy buys time enough to mend the realm." She looked at the pale sunrise beyond battlements. Time is not so cheaply bought as blood. Their time proved short. A raven arrived from King's Landing bearing seal of the hand. The broken seal Ned himself once pressed, now cracked. Inside, parchment bore but 3 words in a spidery hand. "The king is dead."
Nedef
Felt the world tilt. Beside him, Jaime laughed, a sound of disbelief and grim amusement. Mercy had spared one life only to unmoor a kingdom, it seemed. Robert's death, boar, wine, or dagger none could yet say, sent shockwaves faster than ravens. Renly fled capital with loyal guard. Stannis assembled fleets. Cersei took her son to the Iron Throne. Tywin marshaled banners. The War of 5 Kings kindled, but the spark was older than any boar hunt. It had been struck the moment a sword stayed its fall upon the neck of a golden knight. And in Castle Black, the Lord Commander read fresh dispatches with lips pressed thin. "Kings to the south," Mormont told Jon Snow. "Dead things to the north, and soon a lion in black." Jon felt the chill of destiny wrap round his shoulders like furs. Night fell over Winterfell. Jaime sat inside the Godswood, freed of chains now that the Starks must decide how to reach the wall amid southern flames. He watched the heart tree bleed sap under moonlight, and for the first time wondered if honor could bloom in such cold soil. His fingers brushed the bark, hesitant, half expecting old gods to spit at a Kingslayer. Only the wind answered, creaking branches like ancient hinges. Footsteps softened behind him. Arya Stark appeared, wooden practice sword held loose. She stared at Jaime's golden head. "You killed a king," she said, a child's blunt dagger. "Will you kill another?" Jaime gazed at moonlit leaves. "I killed madness, little wolf. As for the rest," he stopped. Truth felt heavy as winter air. "The next king I must serve wears black." Arya's eyes narrowed. She lowered the wooden blade. "Serve or slay, lion?" He smiled, thin. "Perhaps, winter girl. At the wall there is room to be something else." Far to the south, Cersei set the Iron Throne for her son with trembling hands, whispering lullabies of iron and fire. She thought of a brother lost to snow, of a father's army marching, of dragons long dead yet still burning in dreams. In the black space between heartbeats she promised herself, "The world will pay for every drop of Lannister blood withheld." In the north, Ned Stark prepared to ride again, this time south, called by duty, by war. But first he would see Jaime sworn before the Old Bear. Honor demanded the circle be closed. The dire wolves howled as the party set forth once more, and the first snows of winter whispered against stone. And thus the game began anew, pieces scraped from board, others set with venomous care. A lion walked toward ice, a wolf toward fire, a stag lay slain upon the burnt grass of memory, and the realm held its breath, fearing the sound of swords unsheathed in the dark. For mercy, like wildfire, once loosed may scorch beyond all intent. The journey north would span weeks, the war south would blaze years. The wall would taste pride, and the 7 kingdoms would learn what price is paid when a king's wrath pauses, if only for a single heartbeat. And somewhere, in the hush between heartbeats, old gods and new watched, unmoving, as men played at justice and crowns, each step echoing through halls of ice and iron, toward an ending no sword could cleave and no mercy could stay. The road stretched onward, dust swirling beneath hoof and wheel, ice forming in gutters as winter advanced. And with each measured mile, the weight of mercy pressed heavier upon every soul, from king to lord to condemned knight, shaping their fates like unseen hands carving stone, slow and irrevocable. So began the shadow of a tale that would last far beyond the waning torches of this single night, carrying with it the chill promise of stories yet untold, battles yet unfought, and hearts yet broken in the name of honor, vengeance, and the fragile dream called peace. The first quiet dawn at Winterfell after the news of Robert's death broke over the castle like thunder was eerily still. No clang of practiced swords in the yard, no chatter of stable boys, not even the usual quarrel of ravens on the battlements. A pall hung over stone and snow alike, and it seemed the gods' wood itself held its breath, red leaves shivering in a wind too faint to feel. Ned Stark stood by the melancholy waters of the reflecting pool, his hands resting on the carved wolf-head pommel of ice. Overnight he had slept little, pacing corridors where the ghosts of his father and brothers still lingered, hearing Robert's booming laugh echo against distant walls now silent forever. The king's final letter, written in a shaky, wine-stained scrawl, named Ned Lord Protector until Joffrey came of age. Yet Ned knew that in King's Landing crowns changed heads more swiftly than ravens changed skies. Duty compelled him south. Honor demanded he first deliver Jaime Lannister to the wall. He watched faint mist drift from the pool's surface while thoughts hunted him like wolves in deep forest. Catelyn's words from hours earlier clung to him. "We are already at war, though no banners yet fly," and he felt the heavy truth in them. His wife eyed every shadow as a Lannister knife. Her sister's fate, Jon Arryn's death, the blade Bran nearly bled upon, all had sharpened her suspicions into a honed edge. She trusted Jaime Lannister about as far as one could throw Casterly Rock. Ned understood the fear gnawing at her, yet the king's justice could not be undone. The Kingslayer must walk the wall. Behind him footsteps crunched in frost. Ned did not need to turn to know the cadence of Ser Jaime's stride. The Southron knight moved with feline grace even in northern chill, wool cloak trailing. "Cold morning, Stark," Jaime drawled, voice as casual as if addressing a tavern acquaintance. "I have developed a new respect for you northerners. You freeze, yet somehow do not crack." Ned grunted, still watching the water. "We bend to storms the South would consider a life-ending calamity. That does not mean we enjoy them." A raven cawed high above. Ned wondered which banner its tidings would next serve. "Ready your cloak. We ride in 2 hours." Jaime leaned against a white birch, golden hair dulled by dim light. "I am ready. I assure you, one cannot overpack for the wall." He flexed his bare fingers, as though picturing them black with frostbite. "Tell me, Lord Stark, do you believe I'll survive long enough to don black? The Night's Watch is not famed for welcoming lions." "If you keep your tongue," Ned said, "and if the wall's men remember their oaths, you will serve." He faced Jaime fully then. "Break them, and I'll see you serve the old gods instead." Jaime's lips curved. An executioner's threat inside a prayer garden, charming. When Jaime departed to saddle his charger, now a borrowed Winterfell gelding, as the Lannister stallion had lammed itself crossing the neck, Theon Greyjoy strode into the godswood, cloak flapping like a crow's wing. "He'll slit a black brother's throat within a fortnight," Theon predicted, grinning the way boys grin at tales of murder. Then your mercy will prove blood-stained irony. Ned eyed his ward coolly. Guard your tongue. Mercy is not weakness. It is armor stronger than plate, if worn by men with the courage to bear it. Theon smirked, unconvinced, and carried on toward the stables. The column formed in the courtyard beneath slate clouds. Robb Stark wore his new breastplate of dark steel, every edge etched with howling direwolves. He looked older than his 16 years, stern in the set of his jaw. Beside him stood Grey Wind, tall as Robb's chest, fur bristling at Jaime Lannister's scent. Catelyn placed a hand on her son's arm. Robb stiffened but obeyed the silent plea. Rickon clutched Catelyn's skirts, bottom lip quivering as he peered at the Golden Knight with equal parts awe and terror. Bran watched from his tower window, Hodder's broad frame at his side, while Maester Luwin and Septa Mordane whispered of omens and the burden of crowns. Sansa had not emerged since the Raven came. The king's death, and the rumors trickling north that Cersei now placed Joffrey on the Iron Throne, had cracked the porcelain world Sansa cherished. Arya, who never believed in porcelain dreams, appeared on the steps holding Needle. Ned crouched to her level. She tried to hide tears with a scowl. "I could go too, father," she said. "I can ride. And if Lannisters try anything, I will stab them." Ned managed a thin smile. "You will stay and guard your lady mother. Winterfell needs fierce swords as much as the road." Arya grimaced but nodded. Catelyn's farewell with Ned was brief, for both feared long partings. They exchanged only a clasp of hands that said what words could not. She did, however, approach Jaime in a swirl of dark blue wool, eyes glinting. "If you forget your vows even once, Kingslayer," she warned, "know the North remembers." Jaime bowed with mocking flourish. "My lady, the North forgets nothing, particularly its threats." The gates groaned open. The procession of 30 riders, 15 wagons bearing grain for outlying keeps, and 5 remounts filed onto the King's Road. Snowflakes sifted from a colorless sky, whispering on steel. Ned rode at the head, Jaime mid-column flanked by 2 Stark guards, Jory Castle at the rear. The direwolf banners unfurled overhead, and Winterfell's towers dwindled behind them like outstretched hands they could never again grasp. 2 days south, camped beneath the wintry hush of the Wolfswood, Jaime found himself staring at a sap-sticky fire while northern men murmured low. The stars above seemed fiercer here, knives of white hung in endless black, unlike the soft haze above King's Landing. He sharpened a dagger, gifted more as test than kindness, and let the rasp of whetstone calm racing thoughts. Every so often eyes lifted from bowls of oat stew to regard him, wary. But no one spoke. At midnight, Ned Stark took second watch. He walked the camp's perimeter, pausing by each sentry, cloak sweeping frost from tussocks. Reaching Jaime, he remained silent long moments. Trees sighed overhead, towering pines heavy with snow. When Ned finally spoke, it was as though continuing a cut thread. "Why confess in the throne room? You had hidden behind the Kingsguard's white cloak near 20 years. Jaime blew on the dagger's edge, then slid it into its sheath. "Truth is a heavy stone. Sooner or later it sinks you. Better to fling it from your pocket before drowning." He added, voice soft, and the sight of Robert sprawled half-drunk upon the Iron Throne, listening to petty petitions. "It struck me how little divides a mad king from a glutted one. I took a life to save a city. I wondered if perhaps I had merely delayed the madness."
Nedesgase fliegt 4 var.
Robert was a friend. Not perfect, but no monster. Jaime looked up, eyes glinting. "Tell yourself that when your friend's bastards litter brothels and your friend's debts drown the realm." The air between them tightened, sharp as drawn wire. Ned's hand settled on Ice's hilt. Then he exhaled. "The man is dead. Such grievances matter less than what comes next." "What comes next, Lord Stark," Jaime said, "is war." Word of Robert's death rode ahead like wind across corn. At Moat Cailin, a weary messenger in Lannister crimson galloped past their column, hooves spraying mud. Ned ordered none to hinder him. The following day, a northern peddler spread fresh rumors at a crossroads inn. Lord Tywin had called banners, 20,000 swords gathering at Riverrun's borders. Renly Baratheon amassed an escort at Highgarden. Stannis had sealed Dragonstone. Galleys white-sailed beneath new banners of a heart in flame. 7 kings in waiting, some whispered. Ned felt each tale like a stone upon his breast. Yet his purpose remained. Deliver Jaime and return south for the small council before chaos hardened like amber. Crossing the bridge of skulls over the White Knife, they entered fields where grass gave way to crusted snow, villages huddled under thatch like mice. At a farmstead, Ned insisted they purchase hens rather than seize them. The farmer pressed eggs on the column in gratitude, blessing Lord Stark's fair dealing. Jaime watched the exchange, expression unreadable. Later he remarked, "Honor may win hearts but not wars. Hearts bleed easily. That is why we must safeguard them," Ned replied. 5 nights later they bivouacked at Queen's Crown, a ring of crumbling walls and a lonely tower long since abandoned. Wind whistled through arrow slits like lost tongues. Jaime climbed to the parapet at dusk, studying the broad vista of snow-drifted moor, the faint ribbon of the King's Road snaking north. Ghostly white owls hunted vole in waning light. Beside him Robb Stark approached, Grey Wind pacing silent as his namesake's shadow. Robb's breath plumed in silver clouds. "You cared nothing for vows," Robb said, voice low. "Why should the Watch trust you?" Jaime set gloved hands on cold stone. "I cared enough for life to break one vow. Perhaps I might learn to keep another." He met the young wolf's cool eyes. "I will heed your father's honor if he heeds my survival." Robb considered that. "If you betray us, the wall won't kill you first." He rested a hand upon Grey Wind's ruff. The direwolf's lips curled, teeth paling in gloom. Jaime inclined his head. "Duly noted." That night a blizzard descended. Tents snapped. Wolves howled in the dark. Snow buried the road, and progress next day was slow. Men walking ahead of horses with shovels. A wagon wheel shattered on hidden rock. Grain spilled like golden sand across white scrub. Jaime jumped down to help lift casks despite protest. When guards hesitated, Ned curtly ordered them to accept his aid. Many hands righted the wagon, and some suspicion thawed in the act of shared labor. Still, whispered jokes about lion claws clipped and paws muzzled circulated around cookfires. 3 leagues from the last river, a column of umbers rode in from the west. Great John at its head, shaggy beard rimed with ice, long axe across his saddle. He greeted Ned with a booming laugh, though his gaze sharpened at sight of Jaime. "A Lannister cub, eh? I'd sooner see him swing than freeze." Ned's tone did not waver. "Swinging befits thieves. Oathbreakers belong at the wall." The Great John shrugged, but later over mulled ale he muttered to his captains. Jaime heard snippets. Lion pelt, message to Tywin, blood price. He kept his dagger near. In the mess of that frigid camp, a raven landed on Ned's outstretched wrist. The parchment tied to its leg bore the direwolf seal of Winterfell, Catelyn's hand. News within chilled Ned more than the wind. Tywin's forces had crossed the Golden Tooth, rumors of Edmure Tully's host gathering at Riverrun, and whispers of Lannister riders along northern borders. She urged speed and caution. Ned felt the timeline tighten like a noose. By the time the black stones of Nightfort rose on the horizon, massive, brooding, half devoured by centuries of snow and terror, Jaime's banter had grown sparse. He eyed the toppled gargoyles, the ice-blocked gate, the haunted cells rumored to devour men whole. The Night Fort was abandoned, but its proximity reminded travelers of what lay ahead. A colossal wall of ice and a life sworn to darkness. The party skirted the ruin and pressed east along the twisting track toward Castle Black. On the final night before arrival, Ned called his captains to a council around a small oil lantern. They spoke of what to do next, how many men to escort Lord Stark south, how many to remain. Jory Castle argued that Ned should ride with at least 20 shields. Robb insisted on leading them, leaving Winterfell to Maester Luwin and Ser Roderick. Ned refused his heir. "The North needs its lord while I serve the realm. You will stay." A father's command left no room for son's protest, yet the disappointment in Robb's eyes haunted Ned long after. Jaime, bound to a pine nearby, overheard fragments. "Stark honor is a burden," he said when Ned approached to check his bonds. "You'd leave your cub to run the den while lions prowl outside?" "My cub is nearly a grown wolf," Ned answered, "and Winterfell is no den but a fortress." He tightened the rope notch. "One he'll defend if lions dare intrude." They slept light. Dawn painted the wall pure rose as if lit from within. Jaime drew breath, cold sliced lungs. The sight struck him speechless. A barrier of ice stretching beyond horizon, its face alive with dawn fire. Even cynicism fell mute before such majesty. He murmured, "A castle with one wall, and that wall the world." Beside him Jory smirked. "Impressive, Kingslayer? Wait till you feel the wind leaking through." At Castle Black's gate, black brothers lined the rampart. Figures in tattered cloaks, hoods drawn. Lord Commander Mormont rode forth with Donal Noy, Mance Raider's old horns still hanging near the gatehouse as trophies.
Ned dismonted, snow crunching under boot.
"Lord Commander, I bring a recruit." Mormont's eyebrows met his hairline at Jaime's visage. "7 buggering gods," he said softly. "A lion at the wall." He glanced at Ned. "You hand me a wildfire jar and wish me not to drop it," Ned replied. "I hand you a man who owes a life. The wall collects such debts." Maester Aemon was summoned. His blind eyes turned milky moons toward the newcomer. "Names matter little here," the old maester said. "Only vows." Jaime bowed, surprised at the tug of humility. In the frosty yard, he recited the words, voice steady. "Night gathers, and now my watch begins." Each line steamed into morning air like spirit leaving body. When finished, a hush settled. Ranks of black brothers appraised their newest sibling with a mixture of awe and unease. Jon Snow stepped forward last, cloak whipping. He clasped Jaime's forearm. "We keep our vows," Jon said, voice quiet yet iron-hard. "See that you do." Jaime met his eyes, gray like Ned's yet haunted by secrets, and sensed stark resolve. It struck him that despite age the bastard might one day command the wall. Stranger fates had befallen greater men. Ned remained 2 nights, conferring with Mormont on wildling raids and provisions. He visited Jon, embracing him before the rookery fire. "I ride south soon," Ned said. "A storm gathers. Did you dream of fighting in wars?" Jon shook his head. "I dreamed of belonging somewhere." Ned squeezed his shoulder. "Hold to that. Wars end. Belonging endures." One evening Ned found Jaime atop the wall, gazing out at endless white cut only by the shimmering ribbon of the milkwater far below. Wind howled like 1,000 damned souls. Torches sputtered hopelessly. Jaime spoke without turning. "Beyond this ice, nothing but death and myths. I killed a king once to save a city. What would you kill, Stark, to save your children?" "I pray I need never learn," Ned said. Jaime's laugh blew away on the gale. "Then you are already lost. In the game to come, only those willing to kill truth, love, honor will save anything." He tapped the ice parapet. "And perhaps even they will fail." Ned's eyes hardened. "You speak like a prophet of doom." "No, a realist." Jaime finally faced him. "Winter is a mirror. It shows men as they are, without the summer's kind light. North or south, we'll soon know whose souls wear cloaks thick enough." Next dawn Ned assembled a lean escort, Jory Castle, for northern knights and 6 archers. He declined Mormont's offer of additional rangers. Castle Black could ill spare them. Robb's protests had been written in the snow where his boot-paced furrows the night before, but he honored his father's command and departed north for Winterfell with the grain wagons and half the company. Ned embraced him near the stables, whispering counsel of patience and courage. Robb's jaw trembled though lips stayed firm. Jon Snow and Samwell Tarly watched from the steps of the common hall as the Lord of Winterfell rode south. Jon felt a ghostly chill, not from wind but from premonition, that the farther his father rode, the farther their paths would part, perhaps forever. Jaime stood atop the king's tower as Ned's column vanished between winter-stripped pines. He raised a hand, half salute, half wave. Bodily, he was bound to the wall. Yet his mind roamed south faster than ravens, toward whispers of fire-blackened crowns, a sister's rage, a father's wrath. Somewhere behind his ribs a new sensation pulsed, alien and unwelcome. Uncertainty. That evening he dined with Donal Noy, blacksmith turned one-armed steward, and a handful of recruits. Porridge thickened with bacon grease filled tin bowls. Warmth rose from the hearth like balm. PYP told bawdy jests. Gren laughed booming. Sam blushed scarlet. Jaime found himself smiling at rough humor where courtly wit once sufficed. The notion startled him almost as much as taking the black. Could broken men build an honor unbroken? The wall would test that question.
Southward ned stärks geni kvicker ned.
He left the King's Road at Queensgate, cutting cross-country along the riverlands to avoid Lannister scouts. Nights they camped in hollow of alder groves, fires banked low. The chill was bitter, yet Ned's mind burned hotter, mapping each house's allegiance, each cousin's claim, each dead ode. He penned letters by guttering candle, dispatching ravens from lonely towers urging Northmen to hold fast and river lords to temper anger. But alliances frayed faster than hawk leather. Riders bearing Riverrun colors brought dire news. Ser Gregor Clegane ravaged the Trident, torches turning villages to pyres in Tywin's name. Edmure Tully pleaded for aid. Hoster lay near death. Another raven from White Harbor warned of cell sails docking at Lannisport. Everywhere Ned looked, the realm bled. Crossing the broad rush, Ned encountered a troop of Freys. Ser Stevrin greeted him with oily smile beneath damp mutton chops. Walder Frey's heir offered safe passage south but demanded assurances. Marriage pacts, trade privileges, promises vague yet binding. Ned declined. He would not broker his children's futures in roadside mud. Stevrin's grin remained, but his eyes cooled like river stones. That night Ned confessed to Jory a rising dread. We race south trusting speed will outrun the storm, yet the storm spreads in all directions. Jory replied, a ship outruns a tempest by striking its heart. Find the calm center. Ned wondered what calm could exist in King's Landing's coiled nest of vipers. Meanwhile, in the Red Keep, Cersei Lannister crowned Joffrey beneath Septon's chant and thousands' applause. Gold cloaks ringed the throne. The High Septon anointed the boy's brow. But whispers crept through courts, that the late kings will name Stark regent, that Stannis Baratheon claimed the crown by blood, that Renly gathered flowers and steel. Littlefinger flitted between factions like a moth near flame, feeding each scrap of truth sweetened with lies. Varys slipped through dungeons where Pycelle hoarded wildfire secrets, through kitchens where bezoar-coated spoons might find their way into cups, through septs where silent sisters heard confessions best left unspoken. He stitched tidings into his silken memory. Stark rides south. Lion roars west. Stag's brothers sharpen horns. When the tapestry at last revealed its pattern, he intended to be standing precisely where threads crossed. Upon the battered stones of Harrenhal, Tywin Lannister held war council under a sky gray as molten iron. Kevin Lannister, Ser Adam Marbrand, Aaron Faring, and the mountain that rides bent over maps. Ned Stark will take the capital, Kevin warned. If he reaches it before us. Tywin's eyes were twin coins in shadow. He will not, the Lion of the Rock replied. We will draw him north of the Trident, bleed him, and let the crown drown in debt. Kings do not sit on thrones. They sit on coffers. At Storm's End, Renly wore new green armor embossed with golden roses, courtesy of Lord Mace Tyrell. His leverage to wed Marjorie and unite Reach to Stormlands. He sent emissaries to the Eyrie, to Riverrun, even to Dorne, promising peace under his banner. Stannis snorted on Dragonstone, scouring books of law. Red-fingered flames crackled in Melisandre's hearth as she spoke of a prince promised and swords of burning light. All while Jaime Lannister supervised new recruits atop the wall, drilling archers at dawn. Some nights he sparred with Jon Snow, long sword ringing against long claw as snow hurled around them. Jon's style was steadfast, his footwork reminiscent of his father's, though tinged by Night's Watch grit. Jaime's was liquid, old tourney flamboyance now tempered by necessity. They grew to understand each other through steel, if not through creed. Ghosts circled their bouts. Sometimes the dire wolf froze, ears tracking the dark forest beyond. Rumors of dead wildlings found south of the wall, blue-eyed and cold, filtered back from ranging parties. Jaime, hearing the tales, recalled wildfires glow beneath King's Landing and felt a similar shiver. Ancient horrors waking where men least expected. On a wind-howled midnight, Jon asked, "Do you believe in White Walkers?" Jaime wiped sweat, breath misting. "I believe in monsters of flesh and crown," he answered, "but I have not yet seen one of ice." Jon said, "You may." Jaime stared over parapet into black infinity. "Then let us pray their crowns are light." Weeks later, Ned's escort rode through the farmlands west of Hayford. They found fields burnt, barns gutted, small folk slaughtered, crows feasted, and the snow was red mud. A lone girl, no more than 12, stumbled from a root cellar, clutching a broken doll. She told of red cloaks riding under a manticore banner, laughter echoing as they cut her father down. Ned buried the dead with his own spade while Jory fashioned a rude grave marker. Rage simmered in Ned's veins. He could hear the King's Road itself pleading for justice. That night he penned 2 letters, one to Robb, urging readiness but caution, one to Stannis, reminding the elder Baratheon of his duty to realm and law. He hesitated long over the wording, knowing each quill stroke might steer nations. When finished, he sealed them with candle wax impressed by the direwolf. At Rosby, the Castellan refused them entrance, claiming plague within. Yet Ned suspected the plague wore red and gold cloaks. Skirting south through bog, they reached Duskendale's outskirts where smoke smeared the sky in dark ribbons. Lannister reavers had struck, shipments of grain bound for King's Landing seized, townsfolk beaten. Ned's escort was too small to challenge the marauders whose banners had already vanished, but Ned vowed that names would be learned and payment extracted. Approaching the capital, they spied black sails on Blackwater Bay, Stannis' ships testing defenses. Chain booms floated, wildfire casks glimpsed on decks. The air tasted of salt, smoke, and fear. Ned turned to Jory. "We enter quietly. The city is tinder. One spark will set it ablaze." They donned plain cloaks, leaving the direwolf banners under canvas in a wagon. King's Landing greeted them with distrustful eyes and shack-shaded alleys. Gold cloaks tottered at posts, more concerned with coins than law. Market stalls were half empty, fruit at ruinous cost. Whispers of famine rose like the stink from flea bottom. Ned's arrival went unnoticed by the masses, just another grim lord among many come to feast on the carrion of power. At the Tower of the Hand, he was met not by guard of honor, but by Lord Peter Baelish wearing scented velvets. Littlefinger's smile dripped honey as he bowed. "Lord Protector, if I might still call you that." Ned brushed past. Inside the council chamber, only Varys awaited, hands folded like pale spiders. Pycelle shuffled in belatedly, eyes watery. Cersei did not appear, neither did the Boy King. Ned read the room like an open codex. The crown had closed ranks. He spoke steady. "By Robert's own hand I am named Lord Protector until the rightful heir comes of age." Pycelle wheezed about the High Septon's coronation. Littlefinger shrugged. Varys spread empty hands. "Alas, the winds of power shift swiftly, my lord. One might argue that will expired with its author." Ned slammed a fist on the oak. "Law does not die with kings." Littlefinger's smile widened. "No, but laws may be interpreted." He produced a parchment bearing the royal seal. Cersei's decree stripping Ned of handship and ordering his arrest for treason. 6 gold cloaks stepped forward, spears leveled. Jory went for his blade. 2 cloaks fell before swords cleared leather. But from the hall 10 more poured in, and crossbows clicked. Pycelle stammered prayers. Varys closed his eyes. Littlefinger whispered, "I did warn you not to trust me." Ned stared into the barrel of Southron betrayal. He thought of Catelyn's kiss, of Robb pacing Winterfell's battlements, of Arya's fierce gaze. He thought of Jaime at the wall, lion-muzzled, yet still breathing. Honor had guided him to this moment. Now honor might kill him, but he would not yield. Not yet. Steel rang. A spear but struck his head. Darkness swamped senses. As Ned fell, he heard Littlefinger murmur almost kindly, "Look on the bright side, Lord Stark. You may yet share a cell beside the man you spared." Far away, beyond wind and snow, atop an icy rampart, Jaime Lannister dreamt he walked corridors of the Red Keep again, steps echoing on cold stone. But when he opened a door, he found only white, blinding frost, and from somewhere distant a wolf howled, mournful and unending. He woke with a start, hand on sword, breath ragged. The northern lights flickered overhead like green fire, painting the wall in emerald shades. Jaime whispered into the silent night, "Mercy is a blade." The blade was falling somewhere far south, unseen, yet he felt its edge keen as any steel. Inside King's Landing's dungeons, Ned Stark opened swollen eyes to torchlit darkness, wrists manacled above him. The chill of northern winters felt kinder than this dank. Across the cell a figure stirred. His eyes adjusted to see Jory unconscious, blood matting temple. Steps echoed outside, keys turned. Ser Meryn Trant entered, flanked by 4 gold cloaks. "The Queen bids you confess your treason," Trant intoned. Ned spat blood, saying nothing. Somewhere beyond, bells tolled midday. Above, the Red Keep bustled with courtiers celebrating the new reign. Ships of Renly and Stannis weighed anchor, war horns sounding. Tywin's banners dripped crimson along the trident. And on the wall, ravens gathered, restless. 5 kings would soon tear the realm like hounds upon a stag. Yet in a frozen fort at the world's edge, a kingslayer stood watch, eyes fixed south, and wondered whether mercy or madness had set this war ablaze. He whispered once more to the wind, softer than before, perhaps a plea, perhaps a promise. The wind did not answer, but far below the wall the forest shook as something ancient stirred, drawn by the scent of new blood in old snow. The game was aflame, pieces scattered. Honor, mercy, vengeance now danced in a spiral none could escape. Winter marched inexorably, and in its chill footsteps every oath and broken vow would meet reckonings long deferred. And thus the wheel continued its slow, thunderous turn, while wolves and lions, stags and dragons, and things far darker than any sigil bared their teeth to the gathering storm, each heartbeat carrying the realm closer to a night without dawn. Snow drifted in lazy spirals over the Red Keep's inner yard, an ill-omened flurry so far south this early in autumn. Sansa Stark watched through the narrow slit of her bedchamber window, hands clasped white-knuckled at her breast. The chill did not bother her. Dread ran colder than any wind. Somewhere beneath those looming towers her father lay in chains, accused of treason by the very queen who had once smiled at Sansa's curtsies. Septa Mordane's soft weeping filled the room like a damp fog, yet Sansa heard only the echo of her own heartbeat. She tried to picture Winterfell's hearth fires, the scent of pine and baked bread home, but her memory frayed when she reached her father's face. She feared forgetting the crinkles at his eyes, the rumble of his laugh. She pressed harder against the stone, as though the wall of her northern dreams might rise around her and keep the South's horrors at bay. Across the city, Arya crouched in a dark niche beneath the Dragon Gate, clutching needle. Her hair was tangled, mud smudged her cheeks, and hunger gnawed her belly, but fury blazed in her eyes. She had slipped the castle walls after hearing rumor of her father's arrest, slipping past sleepy guards and down secret wells known only to kitchen cats. Now she watched gold cloaks march hourly patrols. She counted their beats, memorized every alley that offered cover. Syrio Farrell's voice whispered within, "Water dancing is anticipation." Needle rested across her knees, its slim blade catching lantern light like a wink. She swore beneath her breath that the Lannisters would bleed before they harmed her father. Even a little girl's blade could bite if guided by rage and love. In the bowels of the keep, Ned Stark sat bound to a rough-hewn bench, thick iron rings shackling his wrists to the wall. Water dripped from unseen gutters, pooling around his boots in icy puddles. Torchfire flickered wanly, casting shadows like reaching claws across the damp stone. Pain throbbed at his temple where a spear but had struck, but sharper still was the sick twist of betrayal. Robert dead, Cersei on the throne behind her bastard son, Littlefinger's poisonous smile. Ned had expected serpents, yet somehow their fangs still shocked. He tested his chains. They held firm. The door grated open and Varys entered, slipper feet unheard until he was near. His perfume of powdered lilies could not mask the dungeon stench. "Lord Stark," the spider murmured, face etched with regret. "I grieve that webs meant to protect have snared you instead." Ned's lip curled. "Your webs strangle truth, yet you grieve?" "I grieve for the realm," Varys corrected gently, "and for children pushed onto blades forged by their elders." He produced a small flask and a cup. "Will you drink? Pure water, nothing more." Ned's thirst burned. Pride relented. He drank, water trickling from cracked lips. "Why come if not to free me?" "To counsel," Varys said. "Confess falsely, bend the knee, proclaim Joffrey rightful king. Your daughters may live, and you may take the black." Ned's laugh scraped like broken slate. "Confess to treason I did not commit, and place an usurper's bastard on the throne." "A bastard he may be," Varys whispered, eyes darting to the door, "but a living bastard whose claim armies already die for. Truth, sadly, lacks swords." He knelt closer, voice a breeze. "Stannis builds fleets. Renly woos roses. Tywin feeds rivers with fire. You, my lord, could still quell storm and bloom alike. Spare thousands by one word." Ned closed his eyes, seeing Robb at Winterfell, Catelyn's determined face, Arya's wolf-bold grin. He opened them. "Honor cannot be traded for peace built on lies." Varys sighed, rising. "Then steel will speak where words fail." He replaced the cork. "I will do what I can, but spider threads snap against lion's jaws." He looked almost sorrowful. "Remember, Lord Stark, there is no shame in choosing life over death. Even a spider knows when to flee deeper crevices." When Varys left, torch shadows lengthened, and Ned felt the chill of unseen futures. He was prepared to meet death, but the image of Sansa, alone among foes, twisted inside him like a knife. He prayed silently to old gods and knew that mercy might yet thread through this poisoned weave. Thousands of leagues north, Jaime Lannister trod the wall's icy crest on midnight watch, black cloak whipping. Stars burned searing white, brittle against the void. Beneath his boots, the frozen path creaked like straining timbers. One slip would send him plunging into blue darkness. He had never felt so alive, nor so isolated. The rampart stretched east and west, a colossal rib of the world, older than any Lannister vault. At his side walked Jon Snow, silent save for the crunch of their steps. "Your bastard brother's fate concerns you," Jaime said, surprising himself with the softness of his tone. Jon's gaze flicked over frost-rimmed battlements. "He's my father, not my brother." "Ah!" Jaime's breath steamed. "I, too, know something of complicated fathers." He drummed gloved fingers on the hilt of his borrowed sword. "If I could send word south, could you?" Jon's question cut. Jaime considered. "Ravens fly from here every sunrise. Lord Commander would not enjoy me borrowing one, but perhaps I've charms yet." He smiled. "What would you have me write, Snow? That wolves hunger in the capital? That kings break oaths like toy swords?" Jon stopped, snow swirling around his boots. "Tell my sisters I live, and I will come for them if I can." His eyes glimmered treacherously. Jaime inclined his head. "A lion's word," he said. Jon offered a tight nod, then resumed patrol. When the watch ended, Jaime descended narrow steps into the warm stink of the common hall. Brothers huddled round trestle tables, mugs of hot spiced wine thawing numb fingers. PYP juggled boiled eggs. Gren missed a catch, splattering yolk over the bench. Laughter echoed. Jaime saw in their camaraderie a fierce brightness unknown to many gilded knights. Fellowship born not of conquest but of shared despair. Yet beyond those walls shadows grew. Talk of dead men walking reached Castle Black nightly now. Rangers whispered finding corpses with eyes paler than moonlight that moved when flames dimmed. Jaime dismissed such tales with a cynic's snort, until he looked into Jon's solemn face and saw no jest. Robb Stark paced Winterfell's great hall, lit by fires roaring in every hearth. Lords bannermen filled benches, Karstark gray-haired and grim, Tallheart broad as an oak, Meage Mormont fierce in her bearskin cloak, Galbart Glover, Howland Reed's lanky son standing for his marsh-bound father. They had ridden swift upon Catelyn's call, snow crusted in their beards. Robb stood before them in carved oak chair, his father's seat now by right, though it dwarfed his 19 winters. Grey wind prowled at his heel. "House Lannister holds my lord father captive," Robb declared, voice echoing off rafters. "They bloodied our river kin and marched south to war. Will the North answer?" Great Jon Umber slammed a meaty fist on the table. "Roar they may, but wolves bite deepest in winter. Call the banners, Robb. We'll march." Others roared assent. Only Lord Roderick Castle counseled caution. "If we ride without proof of Lord Eddard's life, we march into a trap." Robb's jaw clenched. "Every day we hesitate, my sisters endure the Queen's mercy. I will not leave them to it." Grey wind barked sharp agreement. Catelyn watched from the dais, heart torn. She remembered Ned's warning of war's cost, yet also his belief that duty sometimes required cost beyond measure. She rose, voice steady. "The North remembers. We have bled for southern crowns before. Let us bleed now for our own." The decision sealed, ravens flew from Winterfell's rookery that night, wings beating through sleet to every holdfast from the rills to Skagos. The young wolf calls. Atop Dragonstone's basalt cliffs, Stannis Baratheon studied the narrow sea below, its gray swells lit by dawn. Melisandre stood behind him, scarlet silks fluttering. "Your claim is righteous," she said, voice like crackling embers. "All bend the knee or burn." Her red eyes gleamed. Stannis's thin mouth tightened. "Burning men gains ashes, not allegiances." Yet he allowed her to press a warm hand to his chest where heart hammered. She whispered of flames forging new dawn, of shadow babies, of a great other stirring in the cold. Stannis listened, stone carved by wind, but in his brows lay doubt's furrow.
Davo-se a vorta proached, cloac snapping.
"Sire, ravens bring tidings. Ned Stark arrested. Renly crowns himself with Tyrell flowers. Lannister army marches." Stannis exhaled slow. "Then the realm fractures." He turned to Davos. "Summon lords that owe old debts. We sail the moment storms break." Below decks, sailors whispered that when Stannis unsheathed his fury, rivers ran red. Above, Melisandre smiled to breaking waves, torchlight painting her hair molten. She saw shapes in spray, a direwolf's head, a crowned stag bleeding, a lion devoured by flames. She whispered, "The night is long and full of terrors," and seabirds shrieked as if echoing prophecy. In King's Landing, Tyrion Lannister arrived at the mud gate astride a shaggy black courser, a company of mountain clansmen at his back. When guards balked, Shagga son of Dolf hefted a mailed fist and the gates swung wide. The imp had journeyed overland from the Vale, captured once by Catelyn Stark, freed by trial by combat, hardened by the perilous path through the mountains of the moon. Now he returned to a city aflame with intrigue. He found his sister Cersei in the small council chambers, draped in black lace, crown of golden roses atop Joffrey's shining hair at her side. "Tyrion," she purred, "you bring savages to court? They prefer the term free folk of the mountain, dear sister." Tyrion bowed. "And they prefer gold." He eyed Joffrey. The boy smirked. Tyrion suppressed a shiver. There was something wolfish in that grin, but the wrong kind of wolf. "Where is our beloved brother Jaime?" "At the wall," Cersei hissed, eyes flashing. "Father marshals forces to free him." She poured wine, hands tremoring. As for Lord Stark, he soon will confess and die. With his head we silence northern howls. Tyrion toasted, though his stomach churned. He knew political murders rarely ended with silence. Still, he kept counsel. A brilliant plan, sister. I'm sure the North will send fruit baskets. He sipped, tongue tasting poison of another sort. In the Riverlands, smoke pillared skyward as Ser Gregor Clegane's riders raised yet another hamlet. Ash drifted like black snow, settling in the Red Fork's waters until the river ran cloudy. Edmure Tully's outriders harried the rear, arrows whistling. But the mountain moved like a boulder down a slope, slow, unstoppable. Small folk fled to Riverrun by the hundreds, starving and hunted. At night their wails echoed beyond the walls, haunting Edmure's dreams. Within Riverrun's solar, Brynden Tully, the Blackfish, studied a map. If Ned Stark falls, he told his nephew, Robb inherits not just Winterfell but Northern Fury. We must bridge our strength. Edmure nodded, rubbing bloodshot eyes. We hold Red Fork crossings, send ravens to Moat Cailin, call Malisters, Brackens, Freys. Blackfish grunted. Walder Frey answers to coin and advantage. We must dangle both. Edmure scowled but agreed. Pride bowed to necessity when rivers bled. Night deepened over the wall. Jaime dreamed of the Mad King again. Ares screaming as wildfire rose, green tendrils licking beard and crown. Jaime's sword slid between shoulder blades. Rain of ash, smell of burnt flesh. But this time, when the king fell, Robert stood laughing atop the Iron Throne, antlered helm dripping wine. The throne melted to ice. Robert froze, eyes shattering like glass. Then Cersei appeared, blood-slick, cradling a headless dwarf. Jaime woke drenched in sweat that turned instantly to ice crystals on his skin. He rose and walked the courtyard, breath fogging. Snow glittered unearthly under aurora rippling violet. Ghost padded beside him unbidden, silent companion. Jaime glanced at the direwolf, eyes lambent red. You haunt me, he told the beast. Ghost merely tilted his head. Jaime chuckled darkly. Perhaps we are both ghosts now, He scratched behind the wolf's ear. Ghost allowed it, then bounded away. At dawn, horns blew. Rangers returned with grievous news. 2 men missing, the rest shaken, claiming shadows in woods that moved like silent hunters, corpses rising, eyes blue. Mormont gathered officers. We ride tomorrow, he declared. Find our lost men or what killed them. He looked at Jaime. You swore the black. Will you stand? Jaime met the old bear's gaze squarely. I faced mad kings. Specters hold no terror, yet inside dread churned. He thought of Ned in chains, of Tywin's rage, of war brewing. He wondered whether the wall would outlast the kingdom it guarded. That evening he penned a raven message. Robb Stark, your father imprisoned, realm aflame. Hold fast the north. Trust no lion save perhaps one here in chains of black. Winter closes. JL. He gave it to Maester Aemon, who tilted blind eyes skyward. Ravens fly both ways, sir. Sometimes they return carrying answers a man fears. Jaime nodded. Fear and I are old friends. At Harrenhal, Tywin Lannister learned of the North's banners rising and smiled thinly. They march a boy to war, he said to Kevin. We cut the wolf pup from the pack. The rest scatter. He sent Ser Adam Marbrand to burn every village Robb might pass, sowing dread. He ordered ravens to Casterly Rock. More spears, more grain. War, like feast, required vast stores. He also wrote to the queen a single line. Hold the city until I have your enemies' heads. Wax sealed. Lion's imprint deep as a wound. Robb's host gathered at Moat Cailin. 15,000 swords, 20 war mammoths from the thens hired by the Umbers, hundreds of archers in forest green cloaks. Drums echoed across the bog. The young wolf rode gray stallion, gray wind weaving between spears. He met with Galbart Glover near the dilapidated gate towers. Our scouts sighted Lannister outriders near the twins, Galbart said. Freys closed their gates, refusing passage. Robb frowned. We cannot waste days besieging Walder. Catelyn suggested a smaller escort treat with the Old Lord. Robb nodded. I'll go myself. He crossed Muddy Causeway flanked by banners snapping. Direwolf on gray, Bear on green, sunburst of Karstark. The twins loomed, two great stone edifices over Green River. Drawbridge remained raised. Atop battlement, crossbowmen watched. After hours of shouted parley, Walder Frey's steward emerged, shriveled as dried apple. He guided Robb through dank corridors where dust motes drifted like lazy midges. Walder Frey waited in a hall smelling of old cheese, flanked by a horde of seed. Sons, grandsons, daughters. His eyes were watery yet cunning. He demanded marriages for his girls, squireships for his boys, hostages of note. Catelyn bargained in crisp tones. In the end, Robb bit down pride. He would wed one of Walder's daughters after the war. In return, the Freys opened gates and pledged arms. Oaths whispered in candlelight-bound futures none could foresee. March resumed. Ravens flew before them bearing proclamations from Robb. Any man who spilt innocent blood in his name would face direwolf justice. Small folk owed no levy but grain and shelter. Word spread that the young wolf was just, but also that his eyes, flint blue like Ned's, held cold fury. The north had stirred. Within the Red Keep, Sansa knelt before the queen in the throne room stripped of banners save the lion and stag. Cersei, draped in crimson, cooed false sympathy. Your father plots against your king, sweet girl. Confess his treason and he may yet be spared. Sansa's voice tremored. My father is loyal. Joffrey lounged on the Iron Throne, legs dangling. He laughed. Loyal dogs fetch. Your father bites. He drew a thin scarlet-lacquered dagger, flipping it. Headsman will teach him tricks. Sansa burst into tears. The hound stepped forward, voice gravel. Enough, boy. Joffrey glared. Cersei silenced him with a touch. Take Lady Sansa to her chambers, the queen ordered. She must rest. The hand's trial will be taxing. The hound led Sansa away. His grip was gentle, though his face remained carved stone. Little bird, he said low, sing only if you must. Deep under the castle, Ned received a visitor in twilight. Ser Barristan Selmy. The old knight slid back his helm, silver hair damp. Lord Stark, I asked the queen leave to see you. He poured water. I fought beside your brother Brandon at the Trident. I owe your family more than silence. Ned's voice cracked. She grants leave easily. Why? She believes no one can sway the outcome. Barristan glanced at torches. I cannot free you, my lord, but I can carry messages. And I can tell you, the boy king grows restless. Cersei's grip slips each time he snarls. He hesitated. If you confess, the court will call for mercy. I will stand with them. Ned closed eyes. Mercy, honor. The words warred. He pictured Lyanna's tomb, promised her justice for House Targaryen's crimes. Promises could kill as sure as swords. Finally, he whispered, I will consider. Barristan nodded. Be swift. The queen's patience is short as her temper. Before leaving, he pressed a small cloth into Ned's palm. Later, by faint torchlight, Ned unfolded it. A shred of Sansa's embroidery, the direwolf sigil half finished. Blood bloomed in his chest. At Castle Black, horns blew thrice in the chill gloom. Rangers returning later than dark. Jaime joined the gathering at the gate. 5 horses trotted out of shadow, riderless. Rangers dragged 2 corpses on sleds. Jon pushed forward, face grim. The bodies, twisted and black-frosted, wore torn cloaks of the Watch. Ser Jeremy Ricker knelt, muttering. The old bear's lantern bathed the dead in amber, revealing deep gashes and pale eye sockets, empty. A captain whispered, We hacked them to stop movement. Jaime's skin crawled. Mormont ordered pyres built. That night the flames crackled high, sparks shooting into ink sky. Jaime stood alongside brothers chanting the words of the Watch, trembling though no wind blew. In embers he saw green wildfire, heard Aerys' shrieks. He wondered whether fire cleansed any horror or merely painted it new colors. Jon beside him stared into flames, thoughts unreadable. Afterward, in the Lord Commander's quarters, Mormont spoke quiet to Jon and Jaime. Reports confirm wildlings fleeing something deeper, harder winters than any living memory. He fixed them with glare. We ride at dawn beyond the wall, not arranging an assault. We find what stalks us. Jon nodded. Jaime swallowed. A king's son and a kingslayer, Mormont mused. Strange company for ghosts. Jaime chuckled weakly. Ghosts keep interesting company, it appears. In the heart of the Kingswood, Renly Baratheon's banners fluttered. Golden stag on green. Tents sprawled like mushroom caps. Knights of the Rainbow Guard sparred in morning dew while Tyrell minstrels sang. Renly donned polished armor with help from Ser Loras, petals etched at the cuirass edges. Stannis will call me usurper, Renly sighed. Loras buckled straps. Stannis commands our lords. You command hearts. Renly smiled but worry-clouded eyes. Mace Tyrell approached, beard perfumed. Ravens speak of Robb Stark's host. North marches south. Renly stroked chin. Perhaps the young wolf and I can ally. Split kingdom between stag and wolf, clip lions and dragons alike. Mace frowned. Starks trust Tyrell's little. They trust Frey's less. But they trust bread and steel. We have both. Renly ordered envoys prepared. War demanded friends new and old. Back in the dungeons, Ned Stark made his decision. When Varys slipped into his cell at dawn, Ned spoke first. I will confess. Varys' shoulders sagged with relief bordering on sorrow. I shall inform the queen. Your life and those of your daughters will be spared, assuming she holds her promise. Ned barked a bitter laugh. Queens and promises. Varys unlocked shackles. Ned's muscles screamed. You will be brought to the Great September at midday, Varys said, before gods and kingdom. As Ned was led through winding passages, he glimpsed sunrise over Blackwater, pale gold smeared by clouds. He whispered, Old gods forgive me, yet in his heart flickered a plan. Confess, take the black, reach Jon, stand sentinel on the world's edge while winter came. Perhaps then his family might live. The Great September of Baelor teemed. Small folk thronged steps, gossip buzzing like hornets. Sansa stood beside Cersei, white as milk, hands shaking. Arya crouched on a gargoyle above the crowd, dusty and unseen, needle ready. The Hound patrolled below, sharp eyes scanning. At noon Ned was brought forth, clad in torn tunic, hair tangled silver. The sight of him drew jeers, sobs, prayers. Joffrey sat upon a carved dais, crown glinting. Cersei watched, lips thin. Grand Maester Pycelle intoned charges. Ned's voice, though hoarse, carried, I, Eddard Stark, confess to plotting treason against the crown. Gasps rippled. Sansa fainted. Cersei smiled triumphant. Ned continued, each word heavier than mail. I urged Stannis Baratheon to seize the throne. I conspired with Robert's brothers. Joffrey is rightwise king. Joffrey leaned forward, eyes bright with cruel delight. Good, he purred. Then my mother's mercy asks you take the black. Live out your days on the wall. Cersei nodded, relieved, but Joffrey's grin widened. Yet treason must bear cost. The nail that stands tallest must be hammered. He rose. Bring me his head. The square erupted. Cersei spun, horror carved across face. Varys hissed. Barristan Selmy stepped forward, but gold cloaks blocked him. Sansa shrieked, scrabbling at the queen's gown. On the roof Arya froze, blade trembling. Ned's eyes found the sky, clear blue like Bran's when laughing. He whispered, Promise me, Ned, hearing Lyanna's dying plea. Then he knelt. Ser Island Payne, mute executioner, drew ice, the Stark greatsword seized by the crown. Sunlight flashed along its length. Ned's last thought was of snow falling on needle pines. The sword fell. The crowd's roar faded to buzzing silence. Blood sprayed across steps, steaming. Sansa's scream rasped raw until swallowed by sobs. Arya bit her lip so hard it bled, tears freezing on dusty cheeks. She felt something shatter inside, shards embedding where innocence had been. The hound, seeing her poised to leap, moved, catching her arm. She struggled, biting, scratching, but his grip was iron. "Not today, little bird," he growled, voice strange. He tucked Needle into his belt, wrapped her in cloak, and vanished into the milling horror. Cersei's face contorted. Anger, fear, helplessness. She hissed at Joffrey, who basked in adoration of blood-lusting small folk. Varys turned away, shaking. Above them all, Ned Stark's head rolled a short distance, hair matted with red, before coming to rest facing the sept doors. Eyes half-lidded, they seemed almost to gaze north, toward frozen rivers, toward a sun marching, toward a wall of ice where a lion now wore black. Night settled over Castle Black the moment Ned died, though no raven yet carried word. Jaime stood before a map with Lord Commander Mormont and Jon Snow, planning the expedition. A sudden gust extinguished candles. Jaime felt a chill deeper than weather. He glanced south over battlements, sensing a thread snap across leagues beyond counting. He shivered, though fire burned in the brazier. Jon saw it too, a tremor in the lantern flame. He touched Longclaw's pommel. "Something's changed," he said. Mormont grunted. "Change is constant on the wall. We adjust. At dawn we ride." Yet dawn brought black wings. The rookery erupted, ravens croaking, agitated. One bore a message sealed in red wax of the capital. Maester Aemon unfolded parchment, eyes misted white. He recited aloud, "Eddard Stark, traitor confessing, executed by decree of King Joffrey. All loyal houses bend knee." Silence as heavy as glacier stone claimed the yard. Jon staggered, face draining. Sam clasped his arm. Jon shook free, stumbling away. Mormont's fists clenched. Rangers muttered oaths. Jaime felt eyes bore into him, some accusing, some pitying. He stepped back, hand on sword, though none drew. That night Jon vanished beyond the wall, alone save Ghost, intent to ride south and join Robb. Jaime pursued, catching him near the tree line. Snow drifted, muffling their horses' hooves. "Run and you forfeit life and vow," Jaime called. Jon wheeled, tears freezing on cheeks. "They killed my father," he choked. Jaime dismounted. "They killed mine long ago," he said, surprising them both. "Vengeance is a meal served often, never filling." He gripped Jon's bridle. "Your father spared me when he could have let Robert's fury take my head. He believed vows could save us. Honor him by keeping yours." Jon shook with grief. "How can I?" Jaime's eyes softened. "By living to defend what he died believing, that duty outlives kings." He reached, clasped Jon's shoulder. Ghost growled low but allowed it. "Ride back with me," Jaime urged. "The wall needs you. The realm will need us both before winter's done." Slowly Jon's rage ebbed into weary sorrow. He nodded. Together they turned northward, horses plodding through new snow. Behind, the forest loomed dark, and somewhere deeper wolves howled, a mournful song echoing off ice and sky. In Winterfell, ravens screamed as death's tidings arrived. Catelyn crumpled to stone floor, Robb catching her. The hall erupted, lords shouting, swords drawn, grief mingling with rage. The great Jon roared, "To King's Landing!" Robb rose, eyes like shards of frozen lake. "No," he said, voice quiet but cutting. The din ceased. "We ride south, yes, but not as subjects. We ride as Northmen seeking justice." He drew steel, held it high. Torchlight glimmered along the edge. "King in the north," Great Jon bellowed. Voices joined, echoing off timbers. "King in the north! King in the north!" The words rolled like thunder, shaking banners free. Robb Stark's heart pounded. He had not sought crowns, but they settled like frost on his brow. Beside him gray wind lifted muzzle, howling. Catelyn rose, tears and steel in her eyes. She kissed Robb's cheek. "Your father's spirit rides with you. In Riverrun, Blackfish received Robb's raven. King in the north. He clenched fist. An old dream wakes. Edmure sighed relief. Ally strong as winter ice. At Harrenhal, Tywin read the same and smiled grimly. A boy crowns himself king, he told Kevin. Good. Boys are easier to crush. In the Kingswood, Renly's envoys returned. Robb would speak only after avenging his father. Renly frowned. Stags, wolves, lions. We dine on each other while dragons stir across the sea, he muttered, thinking of whispers from Karth. On Dragonstone, Melisandre burned leeches, naming Joffrey, Robb, and Balon Greyjoy. Flames crackled secrets. Back at Castle Black, the ranging force assembled. Rangers, stewards, builders, and two unlikely brothers. A bastard and a kingslayer. Jon rode with eyes hollow yet resolute. Jaime wore borrowed mail, golden hair now cropped short, the last vanity shorn. Mormont addressed them atop a drift. We ride not merely for the watch but for the realm. Something walks in the dark beyond men. He lifted torch. Let it feel our fire. Gates groaned. The column trudged into white wilderness. Snow swallowed sound, breath visible as halos. Jaime glanced back once. Towers dwindling, lights flickering like distant memories. He wondered whether Tywin would ever know his son marched into mythic darkness by choice. He wondered whether Cersei would weep, or laugh, or burn cities. Ahead, Jon pressed heel to horse. Ghost loped silent, eyes ember red. In his pocket Jon carried the raven letter from Jaime. Now see. Reesed and stained. Hold fast the north. He had not told Jaime. Some truths were armor best worn unseen. They rode beneath curtain of aurora. Ribbons of jade twisting like slow flames toward haunted forests and frostfang peaks. Each hoofbeat drummed. Winter, winter, winter. South, war drums answered. Freys crossing the Green Fork, Lannisters massing at the Golden Tooth, Tyrell roses unsheathing thorns, iron-born ships raiding lonely coasts. Fires blossomed on plains, smoke smeared horizons. Crows wheeled over corpses, black wings eager. And above it all, unseen yet relentless, the long night crept, hunger in its marrow. In time men would learn the cost of crowns, the weight of vows, the edge of mercy. But for now they marched, wolf, lion, crow, each step driven by grief, honor, vengeance, or duty. Hearts beating cadence to a song the world had nearly forgotten, a song of ice and fire. The snow kept falling, silent, patient, covering roads, covering graves, covering every shattered promise until only white remained, awaiting the crimson of wars yet begun and the distant glow of dawn no man could yet imagine.